people's ability to become citizens.
I'm with you. I'm literally saying that is my entire position. I'm saying make it extremely difficult to become a citizen, because the way you radically shift a nation is if you just allow anybody to become a citizen. That doesn't exclude people from actually just coming in and working or educating themselves. Like, it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. I'm just simply saying, don't allow those people to vote, because if you bring in 5 million Indians and then 5 million Indians vote to become an Indian, you basically get India in 30 years. I don't want America to be India, but I don't care if the Indians want to come in, because eventually they just have to assimilate, because no matter how hard they want to work or how much they want to bitch, either you like it or you don't, but you have no political power in the country, so you're completely irrelevant. You have no say.
But that's kind of what Middle Eastern countries do. They basically, if you don't like it, you just get the fuck out. And if you have a problem obeying our laws, we'll throw you in jail and then deport you as soon as you get released.
Middle Eastern countries don't have like civil rights. I mean, I'm talking about you have full civil rights.
Is that wrong?
Human beings require freedom in order to operate as a human being. Yes, of course it's wrong.
I don't think it's necessarily wrong. I think that's a value judgment.
Of course it's a value judgment. You're talking about a human being and the necessity of a human being to be free. It's a metaphysical requirement for a human being to be free.
Sure, but I would probably argue that it's far safer, for example, to live in Qatar. You probably don't have to worry about criminals robbing you or people jumping you, your shit getting stolen, getting verbally harassed and stared down aggressively by men if you're a woman.
You have no.
You don't have it. You have basically.
Obviously.
Sure, but I would say I've talked to people who said they liked that. They prefer the trade-off. Okay. To them, it's worth it.
Okay. They have the luxury because of America. Nobody is saying, oh my God, like that really nice Saudi Arabian car? No, that doesn't happen. That happens everywhere else in the world. Does anybody say, oh my God, that amazing...
I know they have oil.
Saudi Arabian...
I get it.
Yeah, that's it. They don't produce fuck.
Sure, but I'm not talking about how they lack innovation. I'm talking about how... Yeah, I'm not talking about them lacking innovation. We all know that. Yes, but what we're talking about is that now that they have the means to have a wealthy country because they have oil wealth, what is wrong with them wanting their... In fact, what the fuck is wrong with necessarily wrong with Sharia law if that's how they want to live?
Well, you're just making a more relativist argument. It's like, well, like if they just want to have slavery, like who cares? Just let them have slavery.
I didn't say no. That's not quite the same.
No, that's the logic you're trying to apply. It's just a more relativist argument.
No, I don't necessarily consider them the same. I understand Sharia law can be I think barbaric, but it can be implemented in ways that are not that bad.
You're simply saying, what's wrong with another nation doing what they want to do? And I'm saying, well, what if there's a nation that just wants to have slavery? At what point do you say, actually, that's...
Well, yeah, I would say slavery. There's a country that makes rape of any woman you want, legal. I mean, yeah, there's things that are, obviously cross the line. I don't think anybody would deny that.
I get cross a line. I mean, cross a line for who? That society doesn't care about that line.
Well, it's interesting. Mexico, this was back in 2000, 2001. It's some parts of Mexico, it's really rural. It can be a couple hours to even go to the nearest town. Their concept of rape was haha, that sounds like a silly judicial law. It wasn't a big deal to them. And the women, I guess, didn't feel that traumatized by it because there wasn't this stigma in this out in the middle of nowhere group of natives.
I mean, in Sharia law, 4 men have to witness a woman get raped in order for it to be considered rape.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, would you blame somebody who lives in Qatar or UAE for saying, yeah, we don't have the freedoms when I was studying in the university, at a university in America, but I prefer I prefer being able to live the way I live here.
I'm simply just saying, if you don't hold freedom as a value, okay, then you fall into like the more relativist arguments. And like if I say like,
why should I hold freedom as a value?
Because it's a metaphysical requirement of human beings to be free in order for them to operate as human beings.
No, I think that's bullshit.
Okay, so then let's.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's free technically. I mean,
no. I mean, relatively speaking. So like, if you look at countries like North Korea, where it's a complete totalitarian state, versus America.
But people like living in Qatar. People don't like living in North Korea. So again, why are we using that as an example?
It's all relative, because it's all relative.
Yeah, it's relative. Let's talk about places where people want to live. Muslims like living in Qatar and UAE.
Yes, but like Muslims, okay, have a very tribal and primitive view of the world. That's why they don't mind. These are people that do not produce literally fuck all. Okay,
I know that, but that's
America.
I'm not critiquing their lack of innovation. I'm critiquing their their laws.
But then how do you, bro? But then the reason people go to Dubai, the reason it's prosperous, is because there's other people who go there who have money. Okay, but those people have money because those people who actually produce something.
Well, I do wonder though. What is maybe part of the problem with like Saudi Arabia is that since these people are born into money, can just have the shit they want. They can just buy it. Maybe that lack of it creates a lack of drive to want to be somebody that I don't know, innovates shit. I really don't have the answer, but
I mean, look at the stuff that they invest in. I mean, I wouldn't even say that's the case. I'm simply saying, even if you're born into money and you inherit trillions of dollars, okay, that's just you. Like other people have to produce something of value as well. Because right now what happens is like you don't have like an entire economy in these countries. Like if it's not for oil, these people are bankrupt. Okay, and I'm saying like if you remove that from America, you still have an economy.
Yeah, but they have oil, so why does it matter? I mean, they're not going to go bankrupt, at least anytime soon.
I'm simply saying like if you have a population that doesn't produce anything of value for other people, then like that's it. Like it's not like wealth just comes into a vacuum because you have oil. Like.
But what does it matter? Because there is a demand for oil, and they still happen to have a lot of oil.
I'm saying the conditions that they live in. They have a luxury because of the commodity that they sell to the planet. And I'm saying, if you remove that commodity, what do you think you have? You have a primitive society. And I'm saying, if you take out oil out of America, you still have a civilized society.
Okay.
There's an economy, like you have rights, you have the ability to produce, to pursue other values, and you just don't have that in these other countries. You can't open up a strip club, you can't open up a fucking whatever unless the government approves it. Like the countries that we know, that do that do not do well. That's my entire point. So I'm saying, in order for human beings to operate as a human being, you have to be able to be free enough, relatively speaking, to be able to pursue the values you think are gonna achieve some sort of benefits to your life. And in Qatar, in Saudi, that is not the case.
Yeah, it's not how I look at it.
Well, I mean, I think you have like a. I think you have a misunderstanding of like just wealth doesn't just pop up out of nowhere.
When did I say it did? We all know why the Gulf Arab states have money, but it's not a secret. So what is there to debate?
Well, if it wasn't for the free countries, these people wouldn't be able to trade.
But it's not the free countries. It's because we literally have automobiles and shit that requires oil, and so
that's exactly what I'm talking
they have
about.
the demand.
An an automobile doesn't just pop up in the ether and like we just have automobiles now, or we have like these combustible combustion engines that need a product that you sell. Like, in order for there to be a combustion, there has to be the conditions necessary for you to even be able to produce that. And I'm
sure, but they already exist. I get it, but
bro.
So are you telling me that you think that you don't think that they would be able to be free? You don't think that they could be maybe innovative despite being Muslim with their laws?
Okay, well, give me the example. Where?
No, I'm asking. I actually don't have the answer.
Yeah, I'm saying it doesn't exist. That's not.
You've heard me go off on Arabs about how they completely lack innovation in comparison to the rest of the world. But
I know, but that's my point, bro. That's exactly my point. I'm saying they do not create the conditions necessary in order for us to get to where we are today. So when you say, oh yeah, but I don't mind living in Dubai today, I don't mind living in Qatar today, I'm saying, yeah, okay, but like you have the luxury to say that. But if we had to restart from nothing and you said, yeah, let's go to Dubai, well, good luck, because that's not going to happen. And I'm saying America is a country that allows you the freedom, the conditions for you to be able to get to where we are today. Because Dubai and Saudi do not. That's the beauty of America. That's why.
I mean, it's for me. That's fairly. It's hard to say that is the cause. I do think it perhaps could be an explanation, but I also think that the fact that you have a group of people that do not have to be innovative, just because they're wealthy to begin with. I think was every bit as much of a likely explanation.
Again, you're taking it as if it just comes into a vacuum, bro. That's my point. I'm saying restart, okay? Everybody in the world has nothing, because at some point, everybody in the world did have nothing. I'm saying the conditions that America allows versus the conditions Saudi and the Middle East allows, okay, America will win that 100 out of 100. Okay, so you're all you're saying is, well, now that we have everything, let's just go back to regressing. And it's like, well, why?
Well, no. If I push back, no. This is rather recent blip in history where the West is as powerful and innovative as it is. If you look out throughout history, though, especially along the Mediterranean, North Africa, you cannot say that these Muslims were not innovative. I mean, they had seaworthy ships. They were conquering people. They had their own architecture. They had all kinds of shit. So, I mean, yeah, we're more innovative than them now, but But when they didn't have oil money, they didn't really seem to be lacking innovation necessarily.
They had the Islamic Golden Age because they had Aristotle, and then once they dropped Aristotle, like that was it of Islam today. Like basically, once they dropped Aristotle in like the year 1000, like that was it for Islam. What observations came out of Islam after that?
you were detained at any Illinois juvenile detention facility, this is the money glitch that's getting former detainees.
The function of a Zen teacher is to put his students
Just
in all
say, for
kinds of
instance,
situations
you've got a drug and
where in the
alcohol
normal course of
person,
social
a
relations,
person who is addicted to
by
drugs and alcohol, who's trying to
asking
have
nonsensical
a relationship with some
questions, by
chatbot,
making absurd remarks,
and they're primarily trying to use it to...
all ways of unhinging things. And above all, keeping them stirred up with impossible demands. To hear the sound of one hand, to, without moving, stop a ship sailing out on the water, or to stop the sound of a train whistle in the distance. Magic. To touch the ceiling without getting up from one's chair. To take the 4 divisions of Tokyo out of your sleeve. To take Mount Fuji out of a pillbox. All these impossible questions are asked. And in the ordinary way of interpreting these questions, we think, well, now, gee, how could we do that? See, that's a very difficult question that's been asked. And you have to think, what would I do to do that? Because we are caught up in a certain way of discourse, which the language game that we play, and the social games, the production games, and the survival games that we play are good games. But we take them so seriously that we think that that is the only important thing. And this is to unstick us from that notion and realize that it would be just as good a game to drop dead now as to go on living. Is a lightning flash bad because it lives for a second as compared with the sun that goes on for billions of years? You can't make that sort of comparison, because a world of lightning goes also with a world where there's a sun, and vice versa. So long-lived creatures and short-lived creatures go together. That's the meaning of that saying. Flowering branches grow naturally, some short, some long. So this then is a scene in a Zen community where spontaneous behavior is encouraged within certain limits. And as the student becomes more and more used to it, those limits are expanded until eventually he can be trusted to go out on the street and behave like a true Zen character and get by perfectly well. You know what occasionally happens on the street when 2 people are walking down the sidewalk straight at each other, and they both decide to move to the right together, and then to the left together, and they somehow get stuck, and they can't pass each other. Zen teachers will pull just exactly that sort of stunt when going down a path and meet one of their students, to see if they can get him in a tangle, and can he escape from it. And you will find in everyday life that there is a very clear distinction between people who always seem to be self-possessed and people who are dithering and nervous and don't quite know how to react in any given situation, always getting embarrassed because they have their life too strongly programmed. You said, this is a common marriage argument. You said you would do such and such a thing at such and such a time. And now you've changed your plans. Not that the change of plans really caused any inconvenience, but just the feeling that when you say you will do something at a certain time, you ought to do it at that time, come hell or high water. Well, that's being very unadaptable. That's being a stone kind of sticky thing. If it, after all, doesn't matter when we do it, and somebody is offended because the time has been changed, that's simply because they are attached to punctuality as a fetish. And this is one of the great problems. This causes many automobile accidents. Men rushing home to be on time for dinner. when they stayed late either working or they had to stop for a drink at some bar, or when the girl feels that she has to, if she has a fussy husband and she feels she has to have the dinner ready at exactly a certain moment, she ruins the cooking. He'd rather have a faithful wife and a bad cook. I hope I'm not treading on any toes. So, you see, we spend an awful lot of energy trying to make our lives fit images of what life is or should be, which they can never possibly fit. So, Zen practice is in getting rid of these images. But it's so explosive socially to do that. And it so worries people. They get vertigo, they get dizzy, they don't know which end is up. And this happens, you know, if you've ever been in one of those blab sessions, where they call them tea groups, I think, or something like that, where people gather together without any clear idea of what this gathering is about. They know it's somehow self-exploration, but just how do you begin on that? And so somebody starts to push his idea, and then somebody else says, well, why are you trying to push your idea on us? And then they all get into an argument about the argument. And the most amazing confusions come about, but sometimes they all see what idiots they're being. And then they learn to live together in a really open and spontaneous way.
I am a cheater, a thief, a liar. But not like you think. I have metastatic breast cancer, and I pretend that I'm fine, but I'm tricking my cancer. I'm yanking back more moments, memories, within HER2. And HER2 is for adults whose HER2 positive or HER2 low breast cancer cannot be removed by surgery or is metastatic, and who have received a prior treatment, or whose cancer has come back during or within 6 months of ending treatment. And HER2 helped people live longer than other medicines. Your doctor will do tests to ensure HER2 is right for you, and HER2 can cause serious side effects, like lung problems that may lead to death, low white blood cell counts that are common and sometimes severe, and problems with your heart pumping blood. Tell your doctor right away if you have new or worsening shortness of breath, trouble breathing, signs of infection, cough, fever, chills, feeling tired, swelling of ankles or legs, irregular heartbeat, sudden weight gain, dizziness, or loss of consciousness. And HER2 can harm your unborn baby. Talk to your doctor about pregnancy, breastfeeding, and effective birth control. Ask about other side effects. Within HER2, all that is mundane, magical, mine. Sure, metastatic breast cancer will try to take it all, but not today.
Hey TikTok, it's Alan Walker, and if you want to get this, or this, search Alan Walker on TikTok and tap the banner right now.
There was a very interesting dinner party once where the Zen master was present, and there was a geisha girl who served so beautifully and had such style that he suspected she must have some Zen training. And after a while, when she paused to fill his sake cup, he bowed to her and said, I'd like to give you a present. And she said, I would be most honored. And he took the iron chopsticks that are used for the hibachi, the charcoal brazier, moving the charcoal around. He picked up a piece of red-hot charcoal and gave it to her. Well, she had very long sleeves on her kimono. She whirled the sleeves around her hands and took the hot charcoal, withdrew to the kitchen, dumped it, and changed her kimono because it was burnt through. Then she came back into the room, and after a suitable interval, she stopped before the Zen master and bowed to him and said, I would like to give you, sir, a present. And he said, I would be very much honored. Of course, he was wearing a kimono, something like this. And so she picked up a piece of coal and offered it to him. he immediately produced a cigarette and said, "Thank you, that's just what I needed." Now, you know, in the same way that we have this in our culture, certain people who are comedians, who know how to make jokes and gags in a completely unprepared situation, face them with anything, and they somehow come through. So that is exactly the same thing in a special domain as Zen. Only the master of Zen does this in every life situation. But the important thing is to be able to do this This is the secret. You must remember, you can't make a mistake. Now, that's a very difficult thing to do. Because from childhood up, we have had to conform to a certain social game. And if you're going to conform to this game, you can make mistakes or not make mistakes. So, this thing has gone into us all the time. You must do the right thing. There's certain conduct appropriate here, there's certain conduct appropriate there. And that sticks in us and gives us a double self all our lives long because we never grow up. Do you realize that the whole of life plays a game, which is a childhood game? There are three kinds of people: top people, middle people, and bottom people. And there can't be any middle people unless there are bottom people and top people. There can't be any top people unless there are middle and bottom people. And so it goes. And everybody's trying to be in a top set. Well, if they're going to be there, there's got to be someone in a bottom set. And the people who do the right thing and the people who do the wrong thing. Here in Sausalito, we have this very, very plainly. There are the right people, the nice people who live up on the hill. Then there are the nasty people who live down here on the waterfront, and they grow beards, and they wear blue jeans, and they smoke marijuana. And whereas the other people on the top of the hill drive Cadillacs and have wall-to-wall carpeting and nicely mowed lawns, and their particular kind of poison is alcohol. Now, the people who live on the top of the hill know that they're nice people. But they wouldn't know they were nice people unless they had some nasty people to compare themselves with. Every in-group requires an out-group, whereas the nasty people think they are the real far-out people, whereas those people, those hillbillies, are squares. And they wouldn't be able to feel far out unless there were squares. See? These things simply go together. But when that is not seen, we play the games of getting on top of things all the time. And so we're in a constant state of competition as to, if it's not I'm stronger than you, it's I'm wiser than you, I'm more loving than you, I'm more tolerant than you, I'm more sophisticated than you. It doesn't matter what it is, but this constant competition is going on. In terms of that competition, we can, of course, lose place and in that sense make mistakes. But what a Zen student is a person who is not involved in the status game.
When exploring the credit cards, you should know what you're getting into. With hundreds of offers, Credit Karma curates relevant options for you and shows your approval odds, so it's easier to find your way to the right card for you. Intuit Credit Karma.
the real meaning of a monk. He is not keeping up with the Joneses. And to be a master, he must get to the point where he's not trying to be a master. The whole idea of your being better than anybody else simply doesn't make any sense at all. It is totally meaningless. Because you see everybody manifesting the marvel of the universe in the same way as the stars do. And the water, the winds, and the animals. And you see them all as being in their right places and not being able really to make mistakes, although they may think they're making mistakes or not making mistakes and playing all these competitive games. But that's their game. Now, I only say if that game begins to bore you and it begins to trouble you and give you ulcers and all kinds of things, then you raise the problem of getting out of it. And therefore you start to become interested in things like Zen. That is simply a symptom of your growing in a certain direction, where you are tired of playing a certain kind of game. You are as naturally flowing in another direction as if a tree were putting out a new branch. So because you say, oh, well, we people are interested in higher things, you see, that depends still on the differentiation of rank between the superior and the inferior people. But when you begin to see through that and grow out of that, you don't think anymore of this superior and inferior classification. You don't think we are spiritual people who attend to higher things as distinct from these morons who are only interested in beer and television. The trouble with the human being is, like the trouble with certain animals, like the dinosaur, who evolved to the point where he was so big that he had to have two brains, a higher self in the head and a lower self in the rump. And the difficulty was to get these two brains to coordinate. But we have exactly the same trouble. And we are suffering from a kind of jitters that comes from being two-brained. Now, you see, I'm not saying that that jitters is bad. It's a potential step in evolution and an opportunity of growth. But remember, in the process of growth, the oak is not better than the acorn. Because what does it do? It produces acorns. Or you could say, just like I sometimes love to say, that a chicken is one egg's way of becoming others. So an oak is an acorn's way of becoming other acorns. Where is the point of superiority? The first verse of that poem I just quoted, the flowering branches grow naturally, some short, some long. The first verse is, in the landscape of spring, there is nothing superior and nothing inferior. The flowering branches are naturally, some short, some long. So that's the point of view of being an outcast, in the sense of being outside the taking seriously of being involved in the social game, and therefore being threatened by making mistakes, of doing the wrong thing. That is to say, of carrying into adult life one's childhood condition, where somebody is constantly yammering at you to play the game. So therefore, the preachers and the teachers take the same attitude towards their adult congregations that parents take to children, and lecture them and tell them what they should do. And judges in courts feel also entitled to give people lectures because they say those criminal types haven't grown up, but neither have the judges. It takes two to make a quarrel. So one can begin to think in a new way, in the polarity thinking, instead of being stuck with the competitive thinking of the good guys and the bad guys, the cops and the robbers, the capitalists and the communists, all these things which are simply childishness. Now, of course, you recognize that the moment I say that, it's like talking in English in order to show that the English language has limitations. And I am talking in a language that seems competitive to show that the competitive game has limitations. As if I were saying to all you cats here, look, I have something to tell you that is, and if you get this, you'll be in a better position than you were before you heard it. But I cannot speak to this group or this society or this language-speaking culture without using the language, the gestures, the customs, etc. that you have.
Not everything in Silicon Valley or any industry or life for that matter need be portrayed as home runs or strikeouts, success or failure. It's so ridiculous that it's portrayed that way, but it's what sells newspapers, so it's what you read about. The most successful people I know are divorced, and they tell me it wasn't worth it. Don't do it. Don't sacrifice your families. Hold your children up high as your greatest inventions because they are. I invented something that many of you use every day. You don't know it. It's buried in the enterprise, but I know it. And I know how it feels. And I'll tell you, it doesn't compare to every day holding that one's happy and healthy little hand. And by the way, don't step on anyone's neck to advance your cause. Don't sue anyone and try not to get sued. You'll sleep better at night. I've never been a party to a lawsuit in my technology career. Amen to that. My wife and I don't put work before our daughter or each other. Engineers in my company with similar families and I have been together most of our careers. We don't waste time commuting to offices. We don't have each other over for dinner. We don't have holiday parties. We get it done, and then we see our families. The Union of Concerned Scientists just forecasted that nearly 4,400 homes in Marin County alone are going to be completely underwater in less than 30 years due to sea level rise. So my generation, your generation, we're going to have to do something. For now, I keep searching for ideas, like taking our daughter to school on an electric tandem bicycle. We count the idling cars as we pass in traffic. We wave to them. They used to wave to us, but we're getting a little annoying now, so they kind of just, But it's something. It's something that we can do. Maybe you'll have an idea about attacking global warming. Or maybe you'll have an idea about attacking poverty. Or maybe you'll have an idea about attacking truth and news reporting. Maybe you'll do none of those things, but maybe you'll speak from your heart authentically in front of the person that you're going to marry, and maybe you'll be inspired. In an increasingly unrecognizable world, my career trajectory should be recognizable to you. This means you can do what I've done. You can have this life. You can be happy in your career and your family. And if you want the world to know your name, well, then I applaud you. I really do. The world needs you. And I'll wish you every success. If you're willing to sacrifice it all, get it all, blow out the curve, just remember my name as your backup plan. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail.
Want to stop hair loss in its tracks? Through Hims.com, you can explore a range of options that work best for you, so you can grow visibly thicker and fuller hair. Get back your robust head of hair in just 3 to 6 months with doctor-trusted ingredients like finasteride, minoxidil, and a blend of supplements that support healthy hair. 3 in 4 Hims customers say they wish they started using hair treatment earlier. Stop hair loss and regrow hair. Get started today at Hims.com.
The Zen masters try to get around this by doing things, suddenly, that people just don't get. Well, what is this? Therefore, that is the reason why. This is the real reason why Zen cannot be explained. You have to make, as it were, a jump from the valuation game of better people and worse people, in groups and out groups. And you can only make it by seeing that they all are mutually interdependent. So if we take this situation, let's say I would be talking to you and saying, look, I have some very special thing that you've got to take notice of. Therefore, I am the in-group, and I am the teacher, and you are the out-group. I know perfectly well that I cannot be the teacher unless you come here. And so that my status and my position is totally dependent on you. It isn't something you see, therefore, I have first, and then you get. These things arise mutually. So if you wouldn't come, I wouldn't talk. I wouldn't know what to say. Because I borrowed your language. So that is the insight that things go together. Then, when you see that and aren't in competition, then you don't make a mistake. Because you don't dither. When I first learned the piano and played these wretched scales, the teacher beside me had a pencil in her hand and she hit my fingers every time I made a wrong note. Consequent was I never learned to read music because I hesitated too long to play the note on time. Because I was always, is this pencil going to land? See? And that gets built into your psyche. And so people are always, although they're adults and nobody is clubbing them around and screaming at them any longer, they hear the echoes of that screaming mama or that bombinating papa in the back of their heads all their life long. And so they adopt the same attitudes to their own children. And the fast continues. Because there is no, I don't say that you shouldn't lay down the law to children if you want them to play the social game. But if you lay down the law to your children, you must make provision later in life for them to be liberated. To go through a process of curing them from the bad effects of education. But you can't do that unless you too grow up, see, as we grow up. Says I, including myself. So that is the thing. Now, therefore, in the Zen seed, you would think that the master, as we know him and as we read about him, is an extremely authoritarian figure. That's the way he deliberately comes on at the beginning. He puts up a terrific show of being an awful dragon. And this screens out all sorts of people who don't have somehow the nerve to get into the work. But once you are in, a very strange change takes place. The master becomes the brother. He becomes the affectionate helper of all those students, and they love him as they would a brother, rather than respect him as they would a father. And therefore the students and masters, they make jokes about each other. They have a very curious kind of social relationship, which has all the outward trappings of the authoritarian. But everybody knows on the inside that that's a joke. Liberated people have to be very cool. Otherwise, in a society which doesn't believe in equality and cannot possibly practice it, they would be considered extremely subversive. And therefore, great Zen masters wear purple and gold and carry scepters and sit in thrones. And all this is carried on to cool it. The outside world knows that they're all right. They're disciplined, they have order, they're perfectly fine. Having discussed basic principles of what Zen is about, I'm passing on to the more practical side of it. A Zen monastery is not a monastery in the Christian sense. It's more like a theological seminary, except that it practices more than it teaches.
Hey TikTok, it's Alan Walker, and if you want to get this or this, search Alan Walker on TikTok and tap the banner right now.
People everywhere are recommending GoodRx.
My neighbor showed me the app. It's helped me save on my kids' allergy pills.
GoodRx can save you a lot of money.
A typical institution consists of a campus. And on the campus, there are many buildings. First of all, around the edges, you will invariably find independent temples that were founded in times past by noble families. Because one of the things that the Buddhists did when they came to the Far East was they exploited ancestor worship. This was very clever of them. This being the great religion of China, the Buddhist priests performed services like requiem masses for the repose of the souls or for good reincarnations for one's ancestors, and they made quite a thing out of that. And so they have memorial services for the departed, and that's one of the principal functions of temples in Japan. People don't go to temple in the same way as Westerners go to church. They make pilgrimages to temples, and say at a great temple like Eiheiji, you will find on a Sunday morning or practically any morning a swarm of about 500 people attending the 4 a.m. service of chanting the Buddhist scriptures. But they kind of in and out of their temples. They have special services. They have memorial services, weddings, funerals, or everything like that. But they don't have a parish kind of church community as we find it in the West. Although when Buddhism, through the Japanese immigrants, exports itself to the United States, they immediately copy the Protestant church institution and sing, Buddha loves me, this I know, for the sutra tells me so. It's terrible. And all the young men, Nisei, who have never been in Japan, one thing they can't stand is sutra chanting, because they don't know what it means, and the priests don't know what it means a lot of the time. And but it's beautiful to listen to. They haven't got an educated Western ear yet to appreciate that kind of Oriental music. Well, now, aside from these many temples, each of which is in charge of the priest with his family, and some of them are having a hard time making go of it these days, so they've become restaurants for very elegant food, or museums, and all sorts of things. Now, the guts of a Zen temple is what's called the Sodo. So, in Japanese, is the Sangha, the order of followers of the Buddha. Do simply means all. So the Sangha Hall, or Sodo, is the center. And this consists of a number of rooms, but the main one, the actual Sodo itself, is a large, long, spacious room with platforms on either side and a wide passage down the center. The platforms are 6 feet wide, and each contains a number of tatami mats, which are measure 6 by 3. And every monk is assigned to a mat. And
Did you probably heard as a child, fool me once, shame on you? fooled me twice. Shame on me. How many times has the West been fooled by these tourists?
Agreed. And, I do agree that it's a great idea to have this run by the Congress, because I do like the idea that the Congress, when we started this country, the Congress had all the power, really, and very little was given to George Washington. And
by his request, by the way.
That's right. American Cincinnatus, right? He did not go after power. But anyway, the point. So I do think, having congressional Congress okay it is, I think, is important. And I have a practical question. I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this, but if these nuclear things are out in the middle of the desert, why not just drop a nuclear bomb after you kind of soften things up, maybe? Since there aren't very many people there that are going to be harmed. Just infrastructure, nuclear infrastructure.
So Dominic makes a very important point that I would like to echo in the chat, which is linked above. Did JFK request congressional approval for the naval blockade of Cuba? No. President John F. Kennedy did not get formal congressional approval before implementing the naval blockade of Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962. What did Kennedy do instead? Dominic writes, he informed Congress, but he acted unilaterally as commander-in-chief. But see, he did talk to Congress. And most members of Congress, Dominic points out, publicly supported the president. And he writes that the moment became a precedent for unilateral executive military action used by later presidents. But he's not, this president, discussing any of this with Congress. I don't think he needs the consent of Congress, but he needs the informal consent, I guess, of Congress. And Anson, by the way, agrees in the chat with Dominic's point. Thank you, Les.
Well, can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
And so we have to look at what the alternative is. If they have a bomb, then Iran is a much bigger problem to everybody, including the people in Iran. And if we're trying to get the Middle East stabilized, a nuclear armed Iran is the opposite thing.
Thank you, Les. We'll now go to David.
Eric, I think there's a lot of conundrums here that we're facing as a country, and with regard to Trump's leadership, with regard to the way he's been hemmed in to tacitly give support to Netanyahu, while at the same time pandering to the base, to the Tucker Carlsons of the world. But I thought Tucker brought up some interesting points, Gary, and that was highlighting the fact that Ted Cruz did not have a whole lot of command, not just of the population of Iran, but their ethnic makeup. Not just them being a Muslim Persian country, but the other cultures that also exist in a place of 90 million people. And that's important to understand because from a standpoint of the language and the way the rhetoric that's being bantered about, it resonates and has similarities to the run-up to the Iraq War. And we saw how, George W. Bush spoke about this big threat, this massive threat to our security. He put Colin Powell front and center, taking this story to the UN. And we saw the disastrous outcome of that campaign. And so are we also entering into a very similar, are they setting a trap to enter into a Gulf War II here with regard to a much more country to be more radicalized, get the support of the other aspects of the Middle East. So, I think it's important, as much as I'm not a big MAGA supporter, I think their voice is very important with regard to checking Trump's ability to throw us into something that could have very protracted and massive consequences, not just to the loss of life to the Iranian people and the potential further destruction, or further, not destruction, but damage to the Israeli people in their country, but also to the possible displacement of Iranians, causing massive refugee situations that we've seen in the Syrian campaigns. We're seeing, obviously, the fact that there may not be the ability to do a regime change, the likes of which the Iranian people deserve. And again, I'm no fan of this regime either, Gary. This is a regime that's repressed its people, it's looted its economy, with the backroom deals with China, the shadow economy that exists there. And so there's a whole lot of reasons why this has to happen. But I think the ultimate campaign would be another potential Iraq 2.0 if we don't get it right. So those are some of my talking points on that front. I mean, at the same time, we're seeing Trump call out his Tulsi Gabbard, saying that Iran's not necessarily close to having a nuke. So the messaging, the talking points are kind of all over the map. That's not good for the cohesion of a big decision like this. So, I just think we need to really take a step back. I know we're already en route there on some level with regard to the massive deployment. So maybe we're sort of playing a game of wait and see here. But yes, I'd like nothing more than to see the regime toppled. The Middle East should be a lot safer with one less state actor with a nuclear weapon. But keep in mind, Gary, that a lot of these countries like Iran, North Korea, and even Pakistan, who obtained a nuclear weapon in the early 70s as a byproduct of what India did in terms of their nuclear campaign. These countries feel they're in desperate throes to secure themselves by any means necessary because they can't compete with conventional warfare, the likes of which Israel just demonstrated, the likes of how we demonstrated our campaigns in Gulf War I, not necessarily Gulf War II to some extent. But yeah, these countries don't have a way to resist. This is an allied military response to their sovereignty. So I don't think that ever goes away here, particularly if we destabilize Iran in such a way that it creates a more reactionary response to what it is we're attempting to do here. So those are my talking points today, and I hope it made some sense. Thank you.
Making one's point by embarrassing a person who you have invited onto your platform is not the proper way of making your point. Make your point through argumentation, but not by ridiculing a U.S. senator or anyone for that matter. This was a low point in the career of Tucker Carlson. He made his point. He made his point that the senator doesn't know the population of Iran. And therefore, anything that the president might have to say, the senator might have to say, can be discounted because he just proved that the senator is incompetent and his point of view on this matter must be discarded. It's sort of like Detective Furman. No matter what he said of substance on the stand in the OJ trial, it might have been used to lead to a conviction, was totally discarded. His entire credibility because he got caught lying about the use of the N-word, which had nothing to do with the evidence that he presented. A brilliant move by the defense. That's exactly what Tucker Carlson did. It was terrific theater. It was entertaining as can be. Did it lead to a further understanding of the complexities of this conflict? Absolutely.